This matter, the ATM has written to Judge President of the Western Cape High Court signaling their intention to oppose President Cyril Ramaphosa's urgent bid to halt the parliamentary impeachment process. In their letter to the Judge President, the ATM's lawyer confirms their intention to oppose the interdict, but they have proposed that the matter be expedited and set down for hearing on the 22nd of June, not later. This marks the latest twist in an increasingly bitter legal standoff between the president and members of parliament over the Phala Phala saga. Zuma has previously accused the president of using delaying tactics to avoid accountability. He warned that any pause in the Impeachment Committee's work could amount to contempt of the Constitutional Court's order. Yesterday, Ramaphosa launched an urgent application before the Western Cape High Court seeking to interdict the parliamentary impeachment process. The 31-member Impeachment Committee, chaired by Ghana, remains legally entitled to continue its preparatory work unless and until a court grants Ramaphosa's interdict.
So, as you've heard, Cyril has filed an agent court interdict to stop the National Assembly from going ahead with impeachment proceedings. Cyril has a very big problem in this one. South Africa follows a common law system, common law, Roman Dutch law, and customary law. Common law applies here in this case. So, under common law, there is a known word that's used called the doctrine of precedent. Stare decisis. So, the stare decisis, well, literally means to stand on what's been decided. To stand on what's been decided. Stare decisis. So, what that means that it requires courts to follow the legal principle, the rationale decidendi, established in the past cases with similar facts. How this applies here is that the constitutional court, the hierarchy, the highest court in South Africa decided that Parliament, the National Assembly, must proceed with impeachment of Cyril Ramaphosa, with impeachment proceeding. The impeachment looks at merit because the Section 89 panel, they were looking at the evidence. There were allegations against Phala Phala. This is to do with Phala Phala theft farm. That amount of US dollar were found stuck in his couch, and his workers stole it. They were allegedly illegal immigrants from Namibia, stole the money from his couch, and they didn't report it to the police. All right, it was not reported to the police. We found out later, 2 years later, after the incident had happened, made public after the filing of criminal charge against him, 2 years later, about the amount that was stored in his couch, Cyril Ramaphosa. So those that panel looked at those allegations. They found that there was potentially Cyril may have violated the South African Constitution, may have violated the law, may have violated, his conduct may constitute a gross misconduct. These are the findings of that Section 89 panel that looked at it. And it was made of judges, retired justice, and current justice, a very good, competent panel. They made that ruling and that report and provided to the Parliament. So Parliament, upon receiving that report, what they should have done then was to proceed with impeachment. But the ANC had majority. At the time, they did not proceed until the Member of Parliament, Vuyo, the ATM, and joined later by EFF, they actually took the National Assembly to the Constitutional Court. So Constitutional Court finally ruled on that after 500 days. The longest ruling in the land. That's something about that one. It's how long it took to rule on that. 500 days it ruled on this, and it decided, it was really resounding because it said the Parliament must proceed with impeachment. So now Cyril wants to stop the parliament from following the binding court decision, stare decisis, doctrine of precedent, the ratio, the legal principle set upon by the highest court in South Africa. That said, the parliament must proceed with impeachment. So he's going to the lower court, high court. High court in South Africa is lower than the constitutional court. So in Australia, the high court is higher. So in South Africa, the hierarchy is that the constitutional court is the highest. So it's the apex court. So Cyril wants to go to the lower court to argue that because Cyril, after 4 years of receiving that report that said there was a prima facie evidence that he may have violated the Constitution, Cyril, upon the Constitutional Court decided that the Parliament must proceed with impeachment. Cyril then decided, okay, I'm taking this report for judicial review 4 years later. So that judicial review set up in September, apparently, to review that report. He argues about there was they overstepped the mandate, as always what they do. I mean, even EFF staff, Julius went to court the other day, tried to argue about something that didn't make sense at all. Because with this panel didn't actually had to look at the complete merit and evidence. They had to look at smaller, whether there was probability that Cyril may have broken the law. And they have found that Cyril may have broken the law. So Cyril now wants that report to be reviewed by judiciary. He's got the right to do it, but it's 4 years later. He's got a timing problem with this. But however, as a result of that, he now wants to stop the parliament from proceeding with an instruction, a binding precedent. I mean, instead it says from the apex court that said the parliament must proceed. They didn't say parliament may proceed. If that ruling had said parliament may proceed, then the parliament had options. But the parliament didn't have options. They were given a clear, resounding instruction that failing to do that, the ANC's failure to proceed with this impeachment in the last administration, they violated the Constitution because Section 89 is a constitutional mandate. It's not a party. It's a constitutional mandate, okay, of a member of parliament that binds them. All member of parliament must respect that constitution, must not violate the constitution. So they have violated it. They found that they violated that. So Cyril now wants to stop them from proceeding until Cyril's judiciary review get heard in September. Oh my God. Yeah. Anyway, let's listen to Action SA member of parliament actually talk about this because it's as I said to you guys, Cyril is, I don't think he'll succeed, but he's not going to succeed on this one. He's got a hierarchy problem, called hierarchy problem, the binding judgment, the state assessing problem that he's got from the apex court. And he's also another problem, which is the separation of power. The court cannot rule and to give a judgment, the parliament stop doing what the parliament constitution demands of them to do. Because Cyril waited for 4 years to take the report to the for judicial review. I mean, Arthur didn't mince his word. Let's listen to him. Let's listen to the Action SA. So obviously it was a roasting. I mean, like I told you, that Phala Phala, yeah. Phala Phala is big problem for Cyril. Legal, big problem. Those US dollar that were stashed in his couch, massive problem. I mean, reasonable person already, you had money stashed in your couch and you did not report it to the police once stolen.
This is looking very much or reminiscent of deja vu with our former president, who said that he was looking forward to his day in court, but has spent the last number of decades trying to stay out of court. The current president, Cyril Ramaphosa, has said that he seeks to interdict the work of the Impeachment Committee because it will cause him irreparable reputational harm. We would venture that he's caused himself irreparable reputational harm. He needs to answer why there was that amount of undisclosed foreign exchange in dollars stuffed in a couch. He needs to explain exactly how much money there was. And he needs to explain why there wasn't a proper charge laid with the South African police services. You will know, Thabo, that we went the route of a Promotion to Access to Information Act to get the details about the president's protection team that crossed into a neighboring country to pursue the robbers. And they secured an arrest. But this wasn't done by the South African police services. And the IPID report that we secured indicates that Wally Roeder and his team had broken the law. Now, recently we discovered through another Access to Information Act that the police disciplinary inquiry has indicated that the police officers did nothing wrong. Now, these are the questions that the president is going to have to answer. And the president can go to the High Court, but we already have a constitutional court ruling that it was unlawful to stop the work of the Section 89 Committee and the Impeachment Committee 4 years ago. So we are going to go ahead in Parliament. Parliament is there to protect the Constitution, protect the presidency, and to protect Parliament. We aren't here to protect Cyril Ramaphosa and his reputation that he has sullied himself.
Now, the ANC says, well, they stand with the president on this because he's got right for legal recourse. Where do you draw that line? To say, well, this is the right for legal recourse and this is a delaying tactic?
Well, the ANC have got a rotten track record and reputation in that regard. The Constitutional Court found against the ANC, you will remember, just recently, because the ANC voted against the Section 89 Committee in the last administration. So the ANC have got a terrible track record, and we shouldn't be taking anything they say too seriously, especially when it comes to protecting their presidents. They did so for Jacob Zuma with his Nkandla scandals and many others, and they're doing exactly the same with President Ramaphosa with this current Phala Phala scandal. What we are saying is that the president is welcome to take the finding of the Section 89 independent panel report on review. That's absolutely fine. But as soon as he takes the step of interdicting Parliament from doing its work, Parliament is going to push back. We are not going to be bullied by the ANC anymore. They do not have a majority in Parliament, and Parliament is going to do its work come hell or high water.
Now, you are saying that if the president is successful then in setting aside the report, Parliament should still be allowed to pursue other reports. Is that what you argue?
Absolutely. You know, the president has a problem with the fact that the independent panel report said that he had a prima facie case to answer. The Constitutional Court, led by Chief Justice Meyer, said that Parliament must do its work, and Parliament is going to do its work. And the work of the Impeachment Committee is not to impeach the president. The work of the Impeachment Committee is to look at the evidence and decide whether the charges against the president are serious enough to warrant an impeachment. And then, once we find that, or if we find that, then the process goes to Parliament. And Parliament has to find, with a 2/3 majority, whether the president should be impeached or not. So we as Parliament have got a job to do. We have to look at the evidence and we have to evaluate for ourselves whether the charges are serious enough to move to the next step, which is an impeachment process of the president. And until that happens, until we reach that point, we as Parliament need to look at the facts around this fiasco and this scandal. I mean, I told the president the other day that this is a scandal and he needs to man up to the scandal. He might not have been on the farm, but it is his farm. And those dollars were found in a couch on his farm. And they were undeclared dollars. That's against the law. And everything that transpired since then appears to be against the law as well. So the day of judgment is coming President Cyril Ramaphosa's way, one way or another.
The question for Cyril is that if he believes the panel exceeded its mandate, the Section 89 panel exceeded its mandate by saying that there were prima facie evidence that he may have violated the Constitution, why is that challenge being litigated only after 4 years and only after the Constitutional Court ordered the report to be referred to the Impeachment Committee, rather than immediately after the panel report was issued in November 2022? This panel report was issued in November 2022. November 22 up until the Concord last month ruled that the Parliament must proceed with impeachment. Parliament, the ANC Parliament broke and violated the South African Constitution by not proceeding with impeachment committee. That's the ruling. It was a resounding ruling. They must, not may. They didn't have option. They didn't give them option. So, yeah, you now wonder what is actually a reason for him. As others have alleged that he's trying to, as Athol said, trying to buy himself time. He's doing exactly what Zuma did. We have a case law precedent. Zuma did exactly what Cyril's doing now. And in Zuma's case, he ended up going to jail because he was trying to avoid an interdict, a contempt ruling that he to be arrested because he didn't show up in court. He was arrested. So, and he tried, in order to avoid going to court, to jail, he tried to go to this lower court, and all of them told him that we have a hierarchy to follow. Stay at the sessi of a binding court decision. We cannot hear your case. I think the court will say the same here, that they must rebuke him, give him a whack. Okay?